Hello everybody, this is Alex from Hardcoring Guides, being my guide for Dead Space on Impossible difficulty. Today we are doing Chapter 8, entitled Search and Rescue. This is going to be the second boss fight of the game, the second of 3 boss fights. Technical boss fights, I don't think there's any more than that. And it's going to be the... oh gosh, not the Hive Mind. The Slug, I think it's called. Yeah, I believe it's called the Slug. And it's going to be a bit before we start getting to see some action. So, trying to think of some things that I wanted to talk about in this video, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. I'm having troubles. That's what kind of sucks, because like before I do a video, I typically kind of like think about things I want to talk about before I do said video. But then I finally get to the said video, and then now I don't know what to talk about, and it bugs me. I do that even before like I actually hang out with people too. It's like I kind of end up thinking about what I'm gonna say, what they're gonna say, and then it just kind of like goes from there, and I think about all this stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot that this was the beginning part. Sorry, I edited this like last night, so my memory is kind of, you know, fading on me. But so this room, it's gonna start spawning in some of the explodey guys, and by now, you know, of course, they should be relatively simple to figure out. I don't know if they have a set spawn or not. I don't think so. It never really seems like they do. If you want to go somewhere that could be potentially safe, I mean, maybe near the safe spot, because I don't think they can spawn back there, just to get kind of like a nice view. I usually just kind of hang around the middle section, because they tend to kind of spawn on the other side of me all the time anyway. So I just kind of just run around and just let them spawn, but that's what I do. I'm not sure of any potential safe spots. I'm just saying that maybe the save area could be a good safe spot. But after they spawn in, something that you can do, of course, is just keep one of the exploding pods, one of their arms with you, and you can just use that against these enemies if you don't want to waste ammo on them or whatever. But at the time of playing this, I had, you know, simply just forgotten about these guys, or just not thought ahead. So that's kind of my fault. And of course, I get stuck in a position that, you know, was not very good to get stuck in. Because that's definitely a place you don't want to be at. You don't want to be on these side areas here, because they can easily just kind of group up on you. Usually, just kind of staying in the middle near the elevator usually works for me pretty well. So that's kind of what I do. And of course, you know, I'm just bullying them with the force gun. But now that I remember, there was something I did want to talk about, and it's kind of more related to like my older videos, in terms of my older Dead Space videos that I was doing, and that's that I mentioned before in those videos, but I really want to say it now, is I do really apologize for like if I ever did sound condescending at all. That was not my intention. My intentions in this guide are not to sound mean or to put people down. If I came off like that, I'm sorry. It's just I have a really bad way of explaining a lot of things in a lot of situations. So when it comes to the social aspects of stuff, I'm not really the best at it, you know what I mean? And I feel like when I was talking during those videos, I kept sounding like I was being condescending and saying like, it just, to me, in my brain, you know, everything's a big deal anyway. But to me, in my brain, it kind of felt like I was saying things like, oh man, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, then, you know, you're dumb. You know, it's like, that's not the case by any means. Usually when I try to explain, like, just for an example, actually, before that, of course, you're going to have some Guardians in this room. I use Force Gun. The contact grenades tend to work pretty well. I have not tried the flamethrower on Dead Space Original, but I feel like the flamethrower secondary fire could probably work and probably save you a lot more ammo than what I'm doing. But contact grenades seem to work pretty well, too. So, yeah, this was a spot of the guy that I actually liked doing. And during my playthrough, I was like, yeah, I did a pretty good job on that, even though I got hit, but it's fine. And of course, staying near that corner to kind of get away from the pods, that's what they're called. To actually stay away from the pods shooting you. That's good. But anyway, I know I apologized profusely before, but like I just really want to make sure, you know, that we're all in understanding that, you know, I don't mean to be rude or mean when I say things. When I talk about like, oh, by now you should know how to take down the enemies, and that's, or whatever, or if I, you know, explain how to take them down. And see, even right now, like, I'm having a hard time trying to explain how I'm trying to, you know, let people know, like, I don't mean to be a dick. it just comes out that way sometimes. It's just the nature of me, I guess. Unfortunately, I'm just very dumb. So, of course, in this room, you know, Divider shows up. This is where I use Force Gun a lot. It's just because it ends up being really good to kind of take out small fry, especially swarmers. So, I just use it on them. And again, I know on the last video I mentioned that I probably won't talk too much about how to take down enemies anymore, because at this point in time, if you've made it this far in Impossible mode, most likely you probably know what you're, you know, how to handle these enemies and stuff. And yeah, like right there, like what I just said, pretty much, you know, eventually later on, you know, a couple of videos down the line, I'm going to be thinking about that thing that I said and just be like, man, I sounded so mean when I said that. And it's like, no, not really. You're just an idiot. So, I'm just an idiot. That's what I mean. I usually make these guides just to kind of like, you know, well, one, for fun, and two, to help people out at a more, what I would consider a more casual level of play, but I don't really know if this is actually as casual as I, you know, perceive it as. I tend to think that I do a pretty casual job because I'm, you know, not doing a no damage run, so I end up getting hit a lot of the time, and it just kind of feels more. This is gonna sound also kind of really weird, but it seems to be more regular human levels of play because, you know, everybody makes mistakes. Not that people who do no damage are robotic. That's not true. You know, I played through Metal Gear Rising and I got all the S ranks. I did a lot of no damage on there, and it's like, it's not really robotic. It's just, you know, a rinse, lather, repeat situation. So things that I don't understand, you know, outside of my grasp. I don't know how those people play. I don't know how those things work. So yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I just seem to be in a weird mood. Like, I'm not angry. I'm just, you know, I was in a pretty good mood. It's just for some reason I've been, I don't know, in like a really weird, slightly depressive state, I guess. Depressive state of mind, so to speak. But anyway, so the satellite minigame room. Once you come in this door, I just kind of just hang on the door because these leapers just tend to kind of try to get up on the ramp and they can't do anything about it. So that's just a fun little spot that I found that tends to kind of work some wonders. Although, of course, you know, you're not free from getting completely hit, but chances are you should be fine. Also, there is a stasis module around, so you could just, you know, use stasis willy-nilly if you want. And if you got the ammo for it and you don't mind using some ammo, then yeah, just take out these guys with some nice, good blast shots and then just take them down. But of course, just like what Dead Space 1 seems to do quite often, is a lot of the time it misses its shots. And also that leaper went flying. Yeah, I noticed that too. I think even like during my gameplay, I kind of had a little bit of a chuckle there when I saw him just basically just get ripped into shreds and just sent flying into space. Getting sent into gaming space. And then now we're going to do the actual satellite puzzle. And it's so difficult to do. Just kidding. As in, you literally just do this. You just put it, you put all the power nodes into the bottom sectors here. And you're done. That's literally it. Yeah, you don't have to take out the ones that are not working anymore. You can just leave them in if you want. It doesn't matter. Which, of course, I keep, you know, bringing it up every video. But at this point in time, you know, we're in that age now where the remake is a thing and it does exist. So therefore, it will have comparisons. And I will probably do the same thing to the original, or when I play remake at some point in the future, maybe, if I'm still good on memory of like what happens in OG and what have you. So I'll probably end up, you know, comparing the two even then still. If I remember at that time, of course. But yeah, the puzzle in the remake version of this changes it to where you have to have a specific pattern. And I can't dead offhand remember exactly what that pattern is. I usually have to look it up online just to make sure, just so I can just get through it. But there's no pattern here. You just put them all like in the middle, like on that bottom section there, and then it's just pretty much good to go. And then when I got in this room, I was thinking like, oh man, I gotta solve a puzzle. And then I thought, wait a minute, no I don't. Yeah, I remembered like after a little while, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, you don't solve a puzzle. You just kind of just do the thing and then it works. And then speaking of things that work and don't work, this elevator right here is kind of weird because, as you can see, the camera continuously kind of like pushes back onto me. And I had a moment in time where I ended up actually dying on the elevator because the camera pushed me so far back that somehow it pushed me off and then it killed me. And it was really weird and bizarre. And then also there's a lurker there for some reason. I don't even know if you could even get it killed. I assume you probably could. I assume if you were to take the elevator back and forth, you could probably, blast it with whatever high pressure weapon you have and then just knock it right off the ceiling there and probably take some of its stuff. Also, I think this guy came with the elevator, and I don't like the way he acts, so I'm just gonna send him back. So we're taking him back to Amazon. I'm getting a refund on that little bitch. But yeah, Super, shows up. Just be wary of him. I didn't expect that to happen, as you can saw. I was just kind of like confused myself. I'm like, when the hell did you get there? Like, what? Where did you even come from? But I think he came from the elevator. I think so. And now I'm going to upgrade my weapon. Seems like I'm not doing any cap. So, no cap. Looks like I'm not doing much of anything, really. I guess I'm going for stasis again? No? I'm going for reload? Okay. And eventually going to go for cap and damage. Alright, cool. Alright. So, force gun, upgrade reload. Which, it's kind of nifty. The reload speed on the force gun is not too slow, but it's still, like, having that nice little upgrade is going to, come in handy. That's for sure. And also, coming up very soon, looks like we're about to get to the second boss. And this one is much easier to handle than the original, like, asteroid turret section. This one's a lot easier to deal with and a lot easier to figure out. So it shouldn't be too hard. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I think that thing just opened up on its own, but I'm not sure. That was kind of weird. Like, what is this? Fear? Just, things just open and spooky things just happen? Because Dead Space 1 original doesn't have a lot of that spooky stuff. It just kind of has, like, a jump scare every once in a while. Oh, something else I probably didn't talk about, but I'll mention real quick is I mentioned before that Dead Space 1's not that scary, and I still kind of hold that true. But Dead Space 2, though, it has gotten me to startle, even like in recent playthroughs, which is kind of funny. So yeah, fighting the slug boss, just shoot him, and then the way I go about taking down the tentacles, it's kind of probably hard to see what I'm doing because I'm just it looks like I'm just shooting willy-nilly, and I mean, I probably am. But the trick that I go for is, you see how like when the arms go down and they go to grab something, you want to start shooting at them like when they're going to, like you want to remember that they're grabbing something and then immediately right after they come back up, you want to shoot at them. And something else I'm doing, it's kind of, again, hard to see because I'm all over the place. Well, one, targeting, if they have something in their hand, you want to target it, and you want to hit them, in their weak spot so they don't throw it, of course. But going from left to right and left to right, or well, just like back and forth, like going horizontally back and forth, kind of like side-swiping between them. If you're trying to get like a nice group shot of any, of just pop shots, just to knock out some of their stuff, because sometimes, they start to grab, like, sometimes there's just too many arms grabbing too many things, and you can't hit them all at once, so just go from, like, one nice horizontal swipe. This one might take a while to kind of eventually get going, especially if you want to get the trophy for getting more than, like, 60 health, which I did get on this one, but it's just a little bit irritating to do. But my trick, again, is just to essentially not focus on just one tentacle all the time, and it's just to go back and forth between like a horizontal shot like that, where you kind of just go across the screen and then just shoot it, and hopefully shoot everything, and of course alternate between your fires, so that way you can make sure that every one of your shots will eventually hit, because it seems to be a lot more accurate if you were to fire like this, if you were to fire with an alternate shot instead of just doing it like in one, or like holding both at the same time. Because sometimes the game is just kind of weird about that, and a lot of the stuff seems to, kind of work out when you alternate between them, and some of the shots seem to hit more often than not, at least from my perspective on things. And I did a little bit of looking online, and it seems like people kind of agree with that too, where if you alternate between your shots, you can actually get a better accuracy on hitting them. Because, you know, logic, I guess. Well, it makes sense to my head, but I'm not the best at doing this, so bear with me. Just alternate between your shots, go back and forth, you know, horizontal slice, that type of thing. God, talking about horizontal slice makes me want to play like Metal Gear Rising again. One day I would like to do an S-rank guide for that. One day. But I would have to go back through the game again, and then I would have to remember how to S-rank again, and like what specific optional fights there are and what have you. Because I know what was it? Chapter 4, I think, is the one where you have to stay behind instead of going to the elevator. You can take damage in that optional section with the giant turret guys that show up. That you're on. Well, I call them turret guys, but you're on the turret shooting them more so than anything. But those big guys. Also, yeah, Divider once again. I'm just going to do the same thing I did last time. Just chop down a leg and then just use force. I usually use stasis just to make sure I can kind of keep them still. And one of the body parts, I think it's the head. I think it's the head tends to kind of spawn items and such. Now, granted, you don't need to fight them if you don't want to. They're kind of just there. They don't do a lot of damage. And on top of that, they kind of miss a lot of their attacks. So if you're like in a hallway or something, like if you're in an area that you don't usually go back to and you really don't want to deal with them, then don't worry about dealing with them. It's not worth the time. But if you're like me and you have a force gun or have a good gun that you know for sure is good at getting those shots in, especially an AoE type gun, then yeah, go for it, you know. And if you have good stasis, you could always just use stasis and then stomp them down, and then that could work too. But you would have to have a pretty good amount of duration for that to kind of work. And speaking of duration, it looks like we're going to go back and we're going to go upgrade. So I bought some more nodes, and you don't always have to buy nodes. You know, you don't need that many upgrades. You don't need like a ridiculous amount of upgrades. You can get through the game just fine with upgrading like 1 to 2 guns and upgrading your suit every once in a while. You absolutely don't need that many power nodes. If money is too scarce, then don't worry about it and just try to focus on like getting ammo and what have you, because this game has a pretty lenient way of doing things. So although I don't know what I'm trying to say. That didn't make any sense. I think what I'm trying to say is, like, when it comes to ammo, like, if you absolutely don't have any, then yeah, buy the ammo. But other than that, most of the time it's kind of lenient. And if you have ammo, you probably get money. I think that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. See you guys for the next chapter. So take care, everybody.